Hi, this is Cosmo Laudadio in Period 11 Broadcasting. Today I'm going to be talking about The Sopranos. Mainly the plot, the characters, the whole idea behind it, why it was such an iconic show, not just for Italian Americans, but for everyone, I feel like, and why it changed television forever. I personally chose The Sopranos because I think it's a very influential show. I think a lot of people don't know about it who are my age because it's hard to you can only buy it on HBO, have HBO or get it on iTunes, and it's like $100. So you gotta watch it on YouTube, but I feel like that's still a good way to go because you could find most of it on YouTube if you search up the episodes. But I think it's also worth it to get the iTunes package that I got because it's like 110 episodes, I think, or something, for $100, and it's like 100 hours because each episode's like 45 minutes at least. And that just goes back to why The Sopranos changed television, because they were one of the first shows to have 45-minute episodes and leave people on cliffhangers and then make them want to come back the next week and watch it, which I think is pretty cool. The Sopranos is a crime drama created by David Chase. The story revolves around Tony Soprano, who's played by James Gandolfini, a New Jersey-based Italian-American mobster, portraying the difficulties that he faces as he tries to balance his family life with his role as a leader in the mob. These are explored during his therapy sessions with his psychiatrist, Jennifer Melfi, who's played by Lorraine Bracco. The series features Tony's family members, mafia colleagues, and rivals in prominent roles, most notably his wife Carmela, played by Eddie Falco. Also his protege/distant cousin, Christopher Moltisanti, played by Michael Imperioli. The writers in The Sopranos were David Chase for 30 episodes, Terrence Winter for 25, Robin Green for 22, Mitchell Burgess for 22, and Matthew Weiner for 12. The main stars in the film were James Gandolfini, Lorraine Bracco, Eddie Falco, Michael Imperioli, Dominic Caese, Stephen Van Sant, Tony Sirico, Robert Ilir, Jamie Lynn Sigler. The opening theme song in the intro to every single episode is Woke Up This Morning, the Chosen One mix by Alabama 3. There were 6 seasons filmed for The Sopranos. There are 86 total episodes. The production locations were Silvercup Studios, New Jersey, and then they filmed in New York City. The cinematography or camera crew was Alik Sakrahov for 38 episodes and Phil Abraham for the other 47 episodes. The editors were Sidney Walensky for 33 episodes, William B. Stitch for 28 episodes, and Conrad M. Gonzalez for 20 episodes. The camera setup was single camera, and the running time per episode was typically 44 to 72 minutes long. The production companies were Chase Films, Brad Gray Television, and HBO Entertainment. The distributor was Warner Bros. The original network was HBO. The pilot was ordered in 1997, and the show premiered on HBO on January 10, 1999. The series went until June 10, 2007, racking up a total of 86 episodes. The Sopranos is widely regarded as one of the greatest television series of all time. The series won a multitude of awards, including Peabody Awards for its first 2 seasons, 21 Primetime Emmy Awards, and 5 Golden Globe Awards. It has been the subject of critical analysis, controversy, and parody, and has spawned books, a video game, soundtrack systems, and assorted merchandise. Several of the members of the show's cast and crew were largely unknown to the public and have since had successful careers. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America named The Sopranos the best-written TV series of all time. While the TV Guide ranked it the best television series of all time, In 2016, the series ranked first in the Rolling Stone list of 100 greatest TV shows of all time. I mean, I don't think it gets better than that. Like, they've won basically every award possible. So, it just speaks a lot on how good of a TV show it is, I think. In March 2018, New Line Cinema announced that they had purchased a film detailing the Sopranos' background story set in the 1960s and 70s during and in the wake of the Newark riots. The 2021 film, The Merry Saints of Newark, is written by David Chase and Lawrence Connor and directed by Alan Taylor. The film will also star Michael Gandolfini, the son of Tony Soprano, and actor James Gandolfini, as young Tony Soprano. I'm so excited to watch this, and I feel like it's really going to make a lot of the people happy who've been just rewatching Sopranos clips and compilations and just the actual episodes over and over again, just wishing there was more, and hopefully that turns out to be great. During Season 1, Tony Soprano, played by James Gandolfini, the main character, starts suffering from panic attacks from stress and starts to go to therapy sessions and sees a shrink, Jennifer Melfi, on and off throughout the whole series. Tony eventually finds himself at odds with his Uncle Junior, his wife Carmela, other mobsters within the Soprano family, and the other New York City-based Lupertazzi family, putting his life at risk and putting his family in dangerous situations as well. David Chase played the whole lead role for the development of Sopranos and creating it, and I really think he just deserves to be talked about in this podcast if I'm going to be talking about The Sopranos. So I'm going to go a little in-depth into David Chase and his relations with the film. David Chase worked as a television producer for more than 20 years before creating The Sopranos. He had been employed as a staff writer or producer for several television series, including Kolchak the Night Stalker, which I heard was actually really good. A lot of people told me to watch it. Switch, The Rockford Files, I'll Fly Away, and Northern Exposure. He had also co-created the short-lived original series Almost Grown in 1988. He made his television directorial debut in 1986 with the Enough Rope for Two episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He also directed episodes of Almost Grown and I'll Fly Away in 1988 and 1992, respectively. In 1996, he wrote and directed the television film The Rockford Files, Punishment and Crime. He served as a showrunner for I'll Fly Away and Northern Exposure. Chase won his first Emmy Award in 1978 for his work on The Rockford Files, and his second for writing the 1980 television film Off the Minnesota Strip. By 1996, he was a coveted showrunner. The story of The Sopranos was initially conceived as a feature film about a mobster in therapy having problems with his mother. Chase got some input from his manager Lloyd Braun and decided to adapt it into a television series. He signed a development deal in 1995 with the production company Brillstein Gray and wrote the original pilot script. He drew heavily from his personal life and his experiences growing up in Jersey, and has stated that he tried to apply his own family dynamic to mobsters. For instance, the relationship between series protagonist Tony Soprano and his mother, Livia, is partially based on Chase's relationship with his own mother. He was also in psychotherapy at the time and modeled the character of Jennifer Melfi after his own psychiatrist. Chase had been fascinated by organized crime and the mafia from an early age, witnessing such people growing up. He also was raised on classic gangster films such as The Public Enemy and the crime series The Untouchables. The series is partially inspired by the Richard Buario family, a prominent New Jersey organized crime family when Chase was growing up, and partly on New Jersey's DeCalcante family. He has mentioned American playwrights Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams as influence on the show's writing, and Italian director Federico Fellini as an important influence on the show's cinematic style. The series was named after high school friends of his. David Chase and producer Brad Gray pitched The Sopranos to several networks, such as Fox. They showed Fox, and Fox showed interest but passed on it after Chase presented them the pilot script. They eventually pitched the show to Chris Albrecht, the president of HBO Programming, who decided to finance a pilot episode. That was shot in 1997. Chase directed it himself. They finished the pilot and showed it on HBO exclusives, but the show was put on hold for several months. During this time, Chase, who had experienced frustration for a long period with being unable to break out of the TV genre and into film, considered asking HBO for additional funding to shoot 45 more minutes of footage and release The Sopranos as a feature film. In December 1997, HBO decided to produce the series and ordered 12 more episodes for a 13-episode season. The show premiered on HBO in 1999 with the pilot The Sopranos. North Jersey prosecutor and municipal judge Robert Breyer filed a breach of contract lawsuit against Chase in Trenton, New Jersey federal court, alleging that he helped to create the show. Breyer lost the suit, but he won a ruling that a jury should decide how much he should be paid for services as a location scout, researcher, and story consultant. Breyer argued that he had introduced Chase to Tony Spirito, a restaurateur, a gambler with alleged mob ties, and Thomas Coxer, a homicide detective for the Elizabeth, New Jersey Police Department. Chase had conducted interviews and tours with both, which strongly inspired some characters, settings, and storylines portrayed in The Sopranos. On December 19, 2007, a federal jury ruled against Breyer, dismissing all of his claims. Many of the actors on The Sopranos are Italian-American, like the characters they portray, and many have appeared together in other films and television series before the cast of Sopranos. The series has 27 actors in common with the 1990 Martin Scorsese gangster film Goodfellas, Lorraine Bracco, Michael Imperioli, and Tony Sirico. The casting directors were Georgianne Walken and Sheila Jaffe. The main cast was put together through a process of auditions and readings. Actors often did not know whether Chase liked their performances or not. Michael Imperioli beat out several actors for the part of Christopher Moltisanti. He said that Chase has a poker face, so I thought he wasn't into me, and he kept giving me notes and having me try it again, which often is a sign that you're not doing it right. Chase said that he wanted Imperioli because he had been in Goodfellas. James Gandolfini was invited to audition for the part of Tony Soprano after casting director Susan Fitzgerald saw a short clip of his performance in the 1993 film True Romance. Lorraine Bracco played the role of wife Karen Hill in Goodfellas, and she was originally asked to play the role of Carmela Soprano. She took the role of Dr. Jennifer Melfi instead because she wanted to try something different and felt that the part of highly educated Dr. Melfi would become more of a challenge for her. Tony Sirico has a criminal history and has signed on to play Paulie Walnuts so long as his character would not be a rat. Sirico had originally auditioned for the role of Uncle Junior with Frank Vincent, but Dominic Caese landed the role. Chase was impressed with Steven Van Zandt's humorous appearance and presence after seeing him induct the Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997 and invited him to audition. Van Zandt, a guitarist in Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, had never acted before. He auditioned for the role of Tony Soprano, but HBO felt that role should go to more of an experienced actor, so Chase wrote a new part for him. Van Zandt eventually agreed to star in the show as consigliere Silvio Dante, and his real-life spouse Maureen was cast on his own-screen wife as Gabriella. The cast of the debut season of the series consisted of largely unknown actors with the conception of Bracco, Caese, and Nancy Marchand. But many cast members were noted for their acting ability and received mainstream attention for their performances. Subsequent seasons saw established actors Joe Pantoliano, Robert Loggia, Steve Buscemi, and Frank Vincent joining the starring cast, along with well-known actors in recurring roles. such as Peter Bogdanovich, John Hurd, Robert Patrick, Patrick Reigart, Annabella Sciarra, and David Strahan. Several well-known actors appeared in one or two episodes, such as Lauren Bacall, Daniel Baldwin, Annette Bening, Polly Berrigan, Sandra Bernhard, Charles S. Dutton, Jon Favreau, Janine Garofalo, Hal Hoffbrook, Tim Kang, Elias Koteas, Ben Kingsley, Linda Lavin, Ken Leung, Juliana Margulies, Sidney Pollack, Vilmer Valderrama, Alicia Witt, and Burt Young. Series creator and executive producer David Chase served as a showrunner and head writer for the production of all 6 seasons of the show. He was deeply involved with the general production of every episode and is noted for being a very controlling, demanding, and specific producer. He wrote or co-wrote between 2 and 7 episodes per season and would oversee all the editing, consult with the episode directors, and give actors character motivation and approval. Approve casting choices and set designs, and do extensive but uncredited rewrites of episodes written by others. Brad Gray served as executive producer alongside Chase, but had no creative input on the show. Many members of the creative team behind The Sopranos were handpicked by Chase, some being old friends and colleagues of his, others were selective after interviews conducted by producers of the show. Many of the show's writers worked in television before joining the writing staff of The Sopranos. The writing team and married couple Robin Green and Mitchell Burgess worked on the series as writers and producers from the 1st to the 5th season. They had previously worked with Chase on Northern Exposure. Terrence Winter joined the writing staff during the production of the 2nd season and served as executive producer from season 5 onwards. He practiced law for 2 years before deciding to pursue a career as a screenwriter, and he caught the attention of Chase through writer Frank Renzulli. Matthew Weiner served as staff writer and producer for the show's 5th and 6th seasons. He wrote a script for the series Mad Men in 2000, which was passed on to Chase, who was so impressed that he immediately offered Weiner a job as a writer for The Sopranos. Cast members Michael Imperioli and Tony Collette portray Christopher Moltisanti and Angie Bonapicero, respectively, as they also wrote episodes for the show. Imperioli wrote 5 episodes of seasons 2 through 5, and Collette wrote 1 episode of season 5. Other writers included Frank Renzulli, Todd A. Kessler, writing team Diane Frolov and Andrew Schneider, who worked with Chase on Northern Exposure, and Lawrence Connor, who co-created Almost Grown with Chase in 1988. In total, 20 writers or writing teams are credited with writing episodes of The Sopranos. Of these, Tim Van Patten and Mario Lorino receive a single story credit, and 8 others are credited with writing a solo episode. The most prolific writers of the series were Chase, Winter, Green, and Bergs. Many of the directors had previously worked on television series and independent films. The most frequent directors of the series were Tim Van Patten, John Patterson, Alan Coulter, and Alan Taylor, all of whom have a background in television. Recurring cast members Steve Buscemi and Peter Bogdanovich also directed episodes of the series. Chase directed the pilot episode and the series finale. Both episodes were photographed by the show's original director of photography, Elik Shakarov, who later alternated episodes with Phil Abraham. The show's photography and directing is noted for its feature film quality. This look was achieved by Chase collaborating with Sakharov. From the pilot, we would sit down with the whole script and break down the scenes into shots. That's what you do with feature films. I think this was a really, really cool idea because I think like Sopranos was the first early 2000s show that I've seen, that I've looked at, that has like the type of quality that they have. I don't think any other show has the type of quality per episode that Sopranos did in that time period. I think the music has a big part in The Sopranos, or in any kind of large film or series. It just creates a trend where you think certain things are going to happen and maybe they don't, and it kind of plays with your mind. and I think that has a huge part in The Sopranos. So I'm going to get in depth a little bit about that. The Sopranos is noted for its brave music selections and has received considerable critical attention for its effective use of previously recorded songs. Chase personally selected all of the show's music with producer Martin Bruce Steele and music editor Catherine Dyack, sometimes also consulting Stephen Benzant. The music was usually selected once the production and editing of an episode was completed, but on occasion sequences were filmed to match pre-selected pieces of music. The show's opening theme is Woke Up This Morning Chosen One Remix, written by and performed by the British band Alabama 3. With few expectations, a different song plays over the closing credits of each episode. Many songs are repeated multiple times through an episode, such as Living on the Thin Line by the Kinks in the Season 3 episode University and Glad Tidings by Van Morrison in the Season 5 finale All Due Respect. Other songs are heard several times throughout the series. A notable example is Cante Partiro, performed by Italian singer Andrea Bocelli, which plays several times in relation to the character of Carmelo Soprano. While the show utilizes a wealth of previously recorded music, it is also notable for its lack of originally composed incidental music, compared with other television programs. I think that's kind of a big thing because there are a lot of shows that have their own soundtracks, and I think that's really unique and cool. But at the end of the day, I think it's the way the music fits in with what's going on in the show and how the person watching it perceives it. 2 soundtrack albums containing music from the series have been released. The first, titled The Sopranos Music from the HBO original series, was released in 1999. It contains selections from the show's first 2 seasons and reached number 54 on the U.S. Billboard 200. A second soundtrack compilation titled The Sopranos Pepper and Eggs Music from the HBO series was released in 2001. The double disc album contains songs and selected dialogue from the show's first 3 seasons. It reached number 38 on the U.S. Billboard 200. The majority of the exterior scenes taking place in New Jersey were filmed on location, with the majority of the interior shots filmed at the Silver Cup Studios in New York City, including most indoor shots of the Soprano residence, the back room of the strip club Bada Bing, and Dr. Melfi's office. The pork store was called Centani's Meat Market in the pilot episode, an annual butchery in Elizabeth, New Jersey. After the series was picked up by HBO, the producers leased a building with a front in Kearney, New Jersey, which served as the shooting location for exterior and interior scenes for the remainder of the production. Renamed Cetrielli's Pork Store. After the series ended, the building was demolished. The strip club Bada Bing was owned and operated by Silvio Dante on the show, but it is an actual strip club on Route 11 in Lodi, New Jersey. Exteriors and interiors were shot on the location except for the back room. The club called Satin Dolls and was an existing business before the show started. The club continued to operate during the 8 years that the show was filmed there, and a business arrangement was worked out with the owner. Locations manager Mark Kamen recalls the owner was very gracious as long as the shooting did not conflict with his business time. Scenes at the set at the restaurant Vesuvio, owned and operated in the series by character Artie Bucco, were filmed at a restaurant called Manolo's located in Elizabeth for the first episode. After the destruction of Vesuvio within the context of the series, Artie opened a restaurant called Novo Vesuvio. Exterior scenes set there were filmed in an Italian restaurant called Punta Dura located in Long Island City. All the exterior and some interior shots of the Soprano residence were filmed on the location at a private residence in Caldwell, New Jersey. Tony Soprano is seen emerging from the Lincoln Tunnel and passes through the toll booth from the New Jersey Turnpike. Numerous landmarks in and around Newark and New Jersey City are then shown passing by the camera as Tony drives down the highway. The sequence ends with Tony pulling into the driveway of his suburban home. Chase said the goal of the title of the sequence was to show that this particular mafia show was about New Jersey as opposed to New York, where most similar dramas have been set. In the first 3 seasons, Tony leaving the tunnel and passing through the toll plaza, The show had a lot of the World Trade Center towers in Tony's right side view mirror. After the September 11 attacks, the shot was removed and replaced with a more generic shot, beginning of TV's top 10 credit sequences as selected by readers. The Sopranos features a large cast of characters, many of whom get significant amounts of character development. Some only appear in certain seasons, while others appear sporadically or consistently throughout the entire series. All characters were created by David Chase, unless otherwise noted. Tony Soprano, played by James Gandolfini, is the series' protagonist. Tony is one of the capos and the unofficial underboss of the New Jersey-based DeMeo crime family. At the beginning of the series, he eventually becomes its undisputed boss. He is also the patriarch of the Soprano household. Throughout the series, Tony struggles to balance the conflicting requirements of his family with those of the mafia family he controls. Because he is prone to bouts of clinical depression after a fainting spell, Tony's physician refers him for treatment from a psych, Dr. Jennifer Melfi, played by Lauren Bracca. In the show's first episode, she treats Tony to the best of her ability, and even though they routinely clash over various issues, Melfi is usually thoughtful, rational, and humane, a stark contrast to Tony's personality. Tony, a serial womanizer, would occasionally try to flirt with Dr. Melfi from time to time. Melfi harbors some degree of attraction to Tony as well, but never admits or acts on it. Melfi is far more attracted to Tony's dangerousness and power than who he actually is. She is drawn to the challenge of helping such an unusual client and naively assumes that their doctor-patient relationship will not affect her personal life in any way. Adding to Tony's complicated life in his relationship with his wife Carmela, which is restrained by his constant infidelity and her struggle to reconcile the reality of Tony's business and who he is, she's often in denial with the affluent lifestyle and higher social status it brings her. Both have up and down relationships with their two children. The intelligent but rebellious Meadow, played by Jamie Lynn Sigler, and underachiever Anthony Jr., whose everyday teenage issues are further complicated by their eventual knowledge of their father's criminal activities and reputation. The starring cast includes members of Tony's extended family, including his disapproving, manipulative mother, Livia, played by Nancy Marchand, his aimless, histrionic older sister, Janice, played by Ada Turturro, his paternal uncle, Corrado Jr., played by Dominic Caese, nominal boss of the crime family following the death of then-acting boss Jackie Aprile Sr., his maternal cousin, Tony Blandetto, played by Steve Buscemi, and Christopher Montesanti, played by Michael Imperioli, who's often referred to as Tony's nephew, but they're actually cousins by marriage. Both Livia and Janice are scheming, treacherous, shrewd manipulators with major yet under-addressed psychological issues of their own. The single-minded, ambitious Junior is chronically frustrated by having not made boss of the DeMeo family, despite old-school mob traditions entitling him to the position by seniority. He feels his authority is perpetually undermined by Tony's greater influence in the organization and barely contains his seething jealousy at having to watch both his younger brother, Tony's father, and now Tony leapfrog him in the organization. As their professional tensions escalate, Uncle Junior employs increasingly desperate, behind-the-scenes measures to solve his problems with Tony, who still idolizes his uncle and wants to retain Junior's affection and approval. Uncle Junior and Christopher are fixtures in Tony's real family, as well as his crime family, so their actions in one realm often create further conflicts with the other. Christopher, an entitled, insecure DeMeo associate who is ambitious and he is insubordinate and incompetent, is also a chronic substance abuser. Tony Blandetto is a well-respected DeMeo family soldier who returns after completing a lengthy prison sentence. He leaves prison committed to going straight to Tony's dismay, but also has an intense, violent streak. Those in Tony's closest circle within the DeMeo crime family include Silvio Dante, played by Stephen Van Zandt. Silvio is Tony's consigliere and best friend. He runs the family's strip club headquarters and other businesses.
Paulie Walnuts Galtieri, played by Tony Serco, a tough, short-tempered, aging soldier who is fiercely loyal to Tony, and Salvatore Bompensero, a veteran gangster who runs an automotive body shop. He's also a rat. I can't say his other name because it's inappropriate, but that's what they refer to him as the whole show. So, yeah. He worked with Tony and his father, too. Also in Tony's criminal organization are Patsy Parisi, played by Dan Grimaldi, and Furio Guintuna, played by Federico Castelluccio. Patsy is a soft-spoken soldier with head for figures. Furio is an Italian national who joins the family later in the series and serves as Tony's violent enforcer and bodyguard. He's one of my favorite characters. Other significant characters in the DeMio family include Bobby Bacala Baccalieri, played by Stephen R. Sciarippa, Richie Aprile, played by David Preval, Ralph Cifaretto, played by Joe Pantoliano, Eugene Pontecorvo, played by Robert Funero, and Vito Spadafore, played by Joseph Arganascoli. Bobby is a subordinate of Uncle Junior's, whom Tony initially bullies but later accepts into his inner circle. Ralph is a clever, ambitious top earner, but his arrogant, obnoxious, disrespectful, and unpredictability and violent tendencies turn Tony resentful. Richie Aprile is released from prison in Season 2 and quickly makes waves. Pontecorvo is a young soldier who becomes a made-man alongside Christopher. Spadafore works his way up through the ranks to become a top earner of the Aprile crew. He is also secretly homosexual. Friends of the Soprano family include Herman Hesh Rapkin, played by Jerry Adler, Adriana Lacerva, played by Drea De Matteo, Rosalie Aprile, played by Sharon Angela, Angie Bompensero, played by Tony Kalem, along with Artie Bucco, played by John Ventimiglia, and Charmaine Bucco, Catherine Naducci. Hesh is an invaluable advisor and friend to Tony, as he was when Tony's father ran things. Adriana is Christopher's loyal and long-suffering girlfriend. The two have a volatile relationship but appear destined to stay together. Christopher often ignores Adriana's advice and wings it and winds up regretting it. Rosalie is the widow of the previous DeMio boss Jackie Aprile Sr. and a very close friend of Carmela. Angie is Salvatore Bompensero's wife. She later goes into business for herself and quite successfully too. Artie and Charmaine are childhood friends of the Sopranos and owners of the popular restaurant Vesuvio. And then Tony burns it down, so it's Vesuvio 2.0. But Charmaine wishes to have no association with Tony and his crew due to fears that Tony's criminal ways will ultimately ruin everything she and Artie have achieved. Artie, however, a law-abiding, hard-working man, is drawn to his childhood friend Tony's glamorous, seemingly carefree lifestyle. Charmaine bitterly resents Artie's chronic tendency to disregard her wishes while catering to Tony's. Their marriage suffers greatly as a result. Charmaine also had a brief sexual encounter with Tony when he and Carmela had temporarily broken up, when all four were teenagers. Johnny Sack, played by Vince Curatola, Phil Leotardo, played by Frank Vincent, and Little Carmine Lubertazzi Jr., played by Ray Abruzzo, are all significant characters from the New York City-based Lubertazzi crime family, which shares a good amount of its business with the Soprano organization. Although the Lubertazzis and DeMio's interests are often at odds, Tony maintains a cordial, business-like relationship with Johnny Sack, preferring to make mutually beneficial deals, not war. Johnny Sack's second-in-command and eventual successor, Phil Leotardo, is less friendly and harder for Tony to do business with. Little Carmine is the son of the family's first boss and vies for power with its other members. The Sopranos was a major ratings success, despite being aired on premium cable network HBO, which is available in significantly fewer American homes than regular networks. The show frequently attracted equal or larger audiences than most popular network shows of the time. Nielsen ratings for the first 4 seasons are not entirely accurate. However, as Nielsen reported, aggregate numbers for cable networks prior to January 2004, meaning that people who were included in the ratings estimates were actually watching HBO channels other than the main one on which The Sopranos aired. The Sopranos has been hailed by many critics as the greatest and most groundbreaking television series of all times. The writing, acting, and directing have often been singled out for praise. The show has also received considerable attention from critics and journalists for its technical merit, music selections, cinematography, and willingness to deal with difficult and controversial subjects, including crime, family, gender roles, mental illness, and American and Italian American culture. The Sopranos is credited for creating a new era in the mafia genre, deviating from the traditional dramatized image of the gangster in favor of a simpler, more accurate reflection of ordinary day-to-day mob life in a suburb. The series sheds light on the Italian family dynamics through the depiction of Tony's relationship with his mother. The series has an overall rating of 92% on Rotten Tomatoes and 94 out of 100 on Metacritic. The Sopranos has been called perhaps the greatest pop culture masterpiece of its day by Vanity Fair contributor Peter Biskind. Remnick called the show the richest achievement in the history of television in 2002. TV Guide ranks Sopranos 5th on their list of top 50 TV shows of all time, while the series was only in its 4th season. In 2007, Channel 4 in the UK named The Sopranos the greatest television series of all time. The first season of the series received overwhelmingly positive reviews following its initial airing in 1999. The New York Times stated, "It may just be the greatest work of American popular culture of the last quarter century." In 2007, Roger Holland of Pop Matters wrote, "The debut season of The Sopranos remains the crowning achievement of American television." Time Out New York's Andrew Johnston had high praise for the series, stating, "Together, Chase and his fellow writers, including Terrence Winter and Mad Men creator Matthew Weiner, produced the legendary great American novel, and it's 86 episodes long." Johnston asserted the preeminence of The Sopranos as opposed to The Wire and Deadwood in a debate with television critics Alan Sepinwall and Matt Zoller's sites, both of whom would later include The Sopranos in their 2016 book titled TV the Book as the second greatest American television series of all time, behind only The Simpsons and ahead of The Wire, with Shates considering the show's ending to be the greatest ending for any television show. The Sopranos had a significant effect on the shape of the American television industry. It had been categorized by critics as one of the most influential artistic works of the 2000s and has been cited as helping to turn serial television into a legitimate art form on the same level as feature films, literature, and theater. Time magazine editor James Poniewczyk wrote in 2007, "This mafia saga showed just how complex and involving TV storytelling could be, inspiring an explosion of ambitious dramas in cable on and off." Several cast members of The Sopranos have started podcasts regarding the series. Michael Imperioli and Steve Schirra began hosting a podcast called Talking The Sopranos on April 6, 2020, where the two provide inside info as they follow the Sopranos series episode by episode. By September 2020, the podcast had reached over 5 million downloads. Dre DiMatteo and Chris Kushner also began hosting a rewatch podcast on March 13, 2020 called Made Woman. On September 17, 2020, Imperioli and Schirra signed a deal with HarperCollins book imprint William Morrow and Company to write an oral history on the show. I think that's pretty cool, and I've actually seen a little bit of the podcast. And for a big part of it, they talk about how influential David Chase was to the film, and also how influential Tony Soprano was as a person in real life, so James Gandolfini, but they just kind of spoke very highly on him, and I thought it was very cool. I want to go more in depth actually on the podcast, but I just didn't feel like I could really fit it into this one, so maybe on the next one I will. Lastly, I just think The Sopranos was a show for the ages. I think it was one of its kind for its time, and I think it's gotten the accolades and the backing already for that. I think it also just it covers a lot of like touchy subjects and stuff, and I think it just pushes people to think and just like it's very outside of the box compared to other stuff. Like I feel like Breaking Bad definitely took some inspiration from The Sopranos and other shows like that for sure.